zombie, or even anorexic Cupid, all wind up in this asylum for the insane. If a comic book is crazy, cool, and stupid, it's shelved in the short box of the Inane.
Submitted for your approval.
I think you mean submitted for my approval. After all, I'm the only one who does any work around here. Oh, hi! I'm the Last Angry Ghoulie, and I'm welcoming you back for another horrifying night in the short box of the Inane, where all the comic books that defy logic, morality, and yes, even good taste wind up. Today I'm making a list, but there's no need to check it twice, because that list is being written on the Death Note, and once is always enough.
Death Note is an extremely popular comic serial or manga from Japan. It follows a magical notebook brought to Earth by the Shinigami, or death god, Ryuk. Finding its way into the hands of Light Yagami, a student and son of the police chief. Light realizes that whoever's name is written in the book dies. Thus, he adopts the identity of Kira and begins to kill any and all criminals so that it can usher the Earth into a golden age of peace. But this attracts the attention of the anonymous detective L, and soon L and Light are engaged in a game of cat and mouse over the fate of the planet. This series is one of the best-selling manga of all time, and has been spun off into several live-action film adaptations, novels, and is even going to be an upcoming series on Netflix.
Ooh, I hate those.
Hate what?
Netflix. Kids used to do that to me when I was walking in front of them in high school. Ooh. Anyway, Death Note takes place on an Earth very much like our own. You might even call it an alternate reality. But are there other alternate realities? Maybe ones where the story of Death Note is slightly different?
Volume 13 was published as a coda to the extremely popular 12-volume Death Note series. It contained background information on the characters, interviews with and commentary tracks on the story by creators Sugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata, a timeline of the events in the comic, the complete rules of the Death Note, how the creators put the comic together, and even several brief 4-panel Death Note comics, last seen in the manga's serialization in Shonen Jump magazine.
This volume even contains a special sealed card that has L's real name, something never revealed in the proper series. Francis. Oh, however, the most important thing of all is the very last thing in Book 13, the original pilot for Death Note. About 50 pages, it first appeared in Shonen Jump in 2003, before getting approved to be made into an ongoing serial. Like a TV pilot, there were characters and basic concepts that traveled into the ongoing series, but there were a lot of things that didn't. It's kind of like watching the Star Trek pilot, but instead of Captain Kirk, imagine the Enterprise was led by a giant fish. What? Don't we all remember Captain Pike? You get it? Pike? Anyway, this is my review of the Death Note pilot. I'd have to fill the Enterprise with water and it kills.
In the Shinigami realm, Ryuk has just realized that his Death Note is missing. While on Earth, 13-year-old Taro Kagami finds the Death Note. Perfect! He lost his old diary and could use this as its replacement. When he gets home, he writes about how he was bullied, and across town his two bullies scream out. The next day, Taro is given the news that the boys who bullied him have died. But it all works out because class is dismissed early. However, he gets bullied again! And when he starts to put together that his notebook might be responsible, he tests it by writing his new bullies' names down. When they're announced dead the next day, he realizes the notebook must be responsible.
Some people might call killing 5 bullies mass murder. I call it a good start.
He runs home and sees that the police are questioning Miura, who is also bullied. He runs up to his room to hide the Death Note, but screams upon seeing Ryuk there. He introduces himself and confirms that the Death Note kills those whose names are written in it. Taro tries to return it, but Ryuk asks if he really wants to give up that power. Besides, he already has a new Death Note of his own. When his mother knocks at the door, Ryuk reassures him that only Taro can see him. Sure enough, Mom sees nothing but tells him the police want to talk to him. An older and younger detective are there to see him. Ryuk freaks Taro out by joining them and suggesting he should write the detective's name in the Death Note, when Taro's mom stops them. She wants to know if they suspect her son. No, 5 deaths of healthy teenagers by heart attack. It was probably a mass suicide. Ryuk explains that Taro can control the manner of the death if he writes it down in the Death Note. If he just writes their names, they'll die of a heart attack. After they leave, the older detective asks his junior, Takagi, if he thinks Taro is acting strange. Takagi feels it's just a normal reaction to meeting the police, but his older partner, Yamanaka, is sure there's a case here. They head to the police records and begin digging through the files. A bank once closed after its staff suffered a string of freak heart attacks. The deaths ended when another man committed suicide. Upon further investigation, other people, not working at the bank but still associated with the man, died under mysterious circumstances. They'll keep investigating. Takagi's partner wonders, if he could kill someone with his mind, would he do it? Yamanaka says he'd kill anyone in his way, but Takagi would use it to make a better world, killing those holding society back, which his partner takes to mean killing the majority of mankind.
Can you imagine the sheer gall of some people using a death note to try to recreate the world, or even worse, using it for personal ambitions? Oh look, a death note. Now let's get back to the short box of the Inane here on Comic Book Issues, the #1 comic book review show on the internet.
Taro himself is terrified by the note's power, but wonders if he could make the world a better place with it. Ryuk is impressed by his ambition and explains you need to picture the face of the person you want dead while you write their name in the book. We run through the rules of the Death Note before we see a vision of Taro's victims. Waking from a nightmare, Ryuk knows the guilt is getting to him and offers Taro the Death Eraser. Erase a victim's name from the Death Note, and they'll return to life. The next morning, Takagi tells Yamanaka that 48 hours later, all 5 dead kids have come back to life. He wants to go talk to them, but they're already back in school.
This is why the Japanese are killing us in the comic book, animation, and yes, auto markets. Their work ethic is second to none. Drop dead? Want to go to the hospital for answers and extensive tests? Not so fast! You've got class today, and after that, cram school. Maybe once you've retired in 50 years, we'll have time to figure out why you beat death.
The detectives arrive in Taro's class to speak to the boys. Ryuk knows the police will suspect him once it's revealed all the boys bullied him. Just as the boys are about to name Taro, they keel over and die. Again!
That's nothing, they've only died twice. With the number of bad jokes I've dropped in this episode, I've easily died more than that.
Before the detectives can call an ambulance, Yamanaka and Takagi also keel over and die. But it wasn't Taro or Ryuk who did this. When the school closes, the news begins to cover the case, and an expert on a panel show notes that now criminals are dying. There must be another death note, and the user didn't realize that everyone will die of a heart attack if you don't put down the manner of their death. Ryuk then reveals to Taro that he dropped his other death note. He can only track it down if he returns to the Shinigami realm, but he's only been to Taro's house in school, so it must have been lost there. As the panelists discuss the possibility that the killer attends the school where all the dead boys went, they all drop dead, except the mystery author. Ryuk posits that that's because the author is using a pen name. Taro has an epiphany and runs from his house. In another house, someone is writing names down in the second death note and shouting, "Die! Die!" Taro bursts in on Miura. Miura tries to write Taro's name down, but Taro tackles him. He wants them both to die, but Taro explains he's the one who started this by killing the 5 boys the first time. Miura was even more bullied, apparently, and would have been the likeliest suspect for the original murders. But the guilt is weighing down on him, and he wants to die until Taro whips out the Death Eraser. They erase the victims' names and decide it's time to turn in the death note to the cops. Of course, the inspectors on the case are dead, until they aren't. Takagi refuses to believe any of this, but Yamanaka is more open-minded. Taro explains that he killed people with this notebook and brought them back with the Death Eraser. Taro threw the notebook away, which we didn't see, and then Miura picked it up, which we also didn't see. And once Miura realized its power, used it to kill the people who suspected him in the first round of killings, since he was the bully's favorite target. Taro asks, if they can prove the Death Note works, will they be forgiven? Yamanaka says it will be so. Taro has Miura write his name down, but with the caveat, a peaceful death. He dies, and moments later after Miura raises his name, Taro revives. The detectives believe the children, but know this is unexplainable to the world at large. They burn the Death Note. Miura apologizes for killing Taro, but sees that he's now gone. Ryuk asks Taro what was it like in the land of the dead. 7 years later, the Death Note has become a phenomenon. Movies, books, comics. A grown-up Taro checks out a rumor magazine about the Death Note. Ryuk remarks that no one actually believes in the Death Note, but Taro wonders. A survey in the back of the magazine might be illuminating. It asks if the people truly believe a Death Note exists, and would they use it?
Well, that's the original pilot for Death Note. And the only thing scarier than this story was how I pronounced most Japanese names. Sorry. But did this story work, or was it just a glint in the eye of the supernatural detective epic it would one day become? Let's take a closer look.
Well, first off, the art by Takeshi Obata isn't nearly as polished as the eventual 12-volume series. I believe in reading the interviews provided in Volume 13 that Obata claimed to have 2 assistants at any time helping him with the art. Here, I suspect it's just him. The figures are there, and Ryuk is pretty much identical to his later form, but we don't have the same sense of grandeur from the scenery. I suspect detail was sacrificed for the sake of expediency. The bigger problem here is the story. So much of it doesn't make sense. There are plenty of plot holes that I'd like to pass off as translation errors, except this publisher is one of the best in the world and probably wouldn't stand for that. For instance, Taro says he threw the Death Note away, which is when Miura found it, but this is right after Ryuk said he lost his second book, while the first had remained in Taro's possession the whole time. So where did Miura get his? Is it the second one Ryuk threw away, or did Taro simply claim to throw the first one away because he couldn't explain Ryuk? It's like writer Sugumi Oba got to the end of the book and realized he needed to add elements at the last minute to make his story work. Never mind that we only see Miura in one panel. He should have had a little more character development before we found out he was the second killer. The police detectives are also pretty bland. Older jaded cop is partnered with young idealistic cop. Ryuk is just visual noise, no pushing Taro to make bad choices like he will Light. Heck, he never even eats an apple. As for our hero, Taro's just a kid with a child's ambitions. The story is correct when it overpowers him with the responsibility of the note, but then his decisions are informed by Ryuk and his paranoia for the middle of the story. A far cry from the more proactive Light Yagami. And that epilogue? What the hell was that about? The world is obsessed with the Death Note and wants to know it exists, even though everyone who knew about it kept it a secret? I think they were hinting that Taro still had the other notebook, but it's never spelled out. The best thing they'll end up doing here is getting rid of the Death Eraser. In the pilot, I suppose they wanted to play to a younger audience, hence the younger protagonist and the eraser, as if to say, it's okay, no one really got hurt. But that makes the Death Note completely inconsequential. Better for the eraser to be gone and give the story a real sense of danger and risk.
The story lacked real substance. Ryuk isn't menacing, the Death Note has no real consequences so long as that eraser is around, and none of the characters are very compelling. The art is nice, if a bit unpolished, and you can see glints of the epic it will become. I give the Death Note pilot 1 out of 5 stars. Fortunately, when Death Note returned, it presented a truly scary and grossing epic. And speaking of gross, next time on the Short Box, will you excuse me? I have to answer the door. I'll just answer this.
Mr. Ghoulie?
Yes?
We're so happy to have you back with the Short Box.
Oh, thank you.
In fact, you've inspired me to host a baking show on the internet, but I only know how to make 2 kinds of cake.
Oh, I like strawberry shortcake. It's got
One of the cakes is very bad and one is very good. The bad one makes you doubt the love of your family.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. A cake that makes you doubt the love of your family? Well, what's the good cake?
It's chocolate.
What? Cake that makes you doubt the love of your family? I think some of you right now must be doubting your love of weirdness on the internet after that joke. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next year with another Short Box of the Inane. Can I find a comic book as weird as the Death Note pilot? Well, I'll try. In fact, I'd like to try some of that cake. Oh, it's okay. My family didn't love me to begin with. So I'm good. I guess I'm thinking about cake. Bye for now.